Okay, welcome to the Pumpkin project. This will be using constrained sweeps or guided sweeps to create complex three-dimensional forms that we will then duplicate to create a rather organic shape out of otherwise inorganic lines. So we're going to start as usual by creating a sketch. I'm going to work from the front here. This particular assignment, it's very important to know from what direction you're looking because we will be making sketches on multiple planes. So I've sketched this out ahead of time on paper, so I have a plan and I kind of have an idea of where I'm coming from. So I'm going to make a line, L for line, and then the first point is going to be at the origin. I'm going to come up and make another line in line with this, and we're going to hit click again to make another one more time, but now we come 90 degrees out. I'm not worried about dimensions at the moment, but I am being careful to keep things collinear, and in this case I want this to be perpendicular. Okay, so now we make a line from the origin along the x-axis. I'm going to come out to about here. We're going to make another line out to here, and we're going to confirm that. And now I'm going to dimension everything. Normally we would use parameters for this, so we could make adjustments later. But since I will be working with splines and sweeps that can break if you give the wrong parameters, we'll work with numbers that we know work for now, and then you can suffer the indignities of having stuff break later. So I'm going to dimension that to 5. And this one I'm going to dimension to 8. And now we're going to come up from the bottom here, and the one that I have that works here is 5.5. Back out, scroll down. Now notice something. My points over here have been superseded by this 5.5 here. So if you find yourself in a situation where, because you've changed the height of this and then everything else didn't move with it, you can undo and then start from the other side. So instead of starting with this one at 5, I'm going to dimension this one at 3. And this one at 1. And then this one at 5. And that way it all stays in a line. If I do this one first, it's possible for it to extend past these. You can just drag them over when you're done, but if you see that happening, that's what's going on. All right, so now I'm going to dimension this one to 6. And I believe for the moment that's what we need. All right, so I'm going to get out of that tool. We're going to create a pair of splines here. And, oh, wait, before we do the splines, my apologies, we are going to mirror this. So this is going to be the top profile of the pumpkin here. But I want the full profile. And instead of trying to mirror the splines, I am going to mirror the whole thing. But before I do that, I am going to, nope, actually I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So this tool right here, Mirror, allows us to select all of these points here. Oops. All right, there we go. Selecting the points. Mirror to here. We have 6 objects selected. For some reason, it's not selecting this one, and it selected this one instead. So I'm going to shift-click this, and then click on that one. So now I have my 6 selected. My mirror line is, oh, that's why I did that. And so now I've got a mirror over here. I don't have to dimension these because the mirror takes care of that. So I'm going to hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to make my splines. So fit point spline is what we're after. I'm going to start at this point here, the one just above the 1, single click. I go out to here, single click. I'm going to go out to here, single click. Out to here, single click. And then we're going to find that point past the 3-inch mark here. So that's the halfway, and see that square? That's our line. So we're going to hit OK right there. And this is the point I realized that I missed one of my guidelines, so I'm going to hit L for line. And this top one right here, I'm going to come out 1.5 inches. And I'm going to repeat that down here. So now I can make another fit point spline, and we are going to start from this one down here, that at the below the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then we'll finish that. And so now we've got 2 splines, and this is basically our pumpkin profile. So before I do anything else, I am going to get out of the spline tool with Escape, and I'm going to turn these into guidelines so that they're not in our way later. I'm just selecting them and hitting X. Could have done this at any point. I could also do this with any of the rest of them, but these aren't necessarily going to be in our way, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so I'm going to finish this sketch. And here is our basic profile. Before we can turn this into a sweep to create dimension, we need to give ourselves a profile for the sweep. So I'm going to create a new sketch. And we are going to work from this plane right here. But I'm not going to use the normal center point circle tool. I'm going to use the 2-point circle tool because what I want is a circle between this point and this point. And that was not the circle tool. So we are going to back up. And we are going to create a 2-point circle. And we're going to select this plane. And we're going to go from here to here. This is the spot on that line, our reference point, that just has a 1 inch. I'm going to do the same for the bottom one here. Although it isn't entirely necessary, I'm doing both just in case I just change my mind whether I work from the top or bottom. So we're going to finish that sketch. And now we have our references for the pumpkin body. So create sweep. What we want is path and guide rail. Usually single path is standard, but we'll work from path and guide rail. And we're going to select the profile. The profile is the shape that you want to create the sweep from. We want this sweep to be a circle. We want the path to be this inside spline. And we want our guide rail to be the outside spline. It is going to adjust where it says here, perpendicular to path. And then also we want it to scale as it goes in and out of the guide rail. You'll see that it scales that circle out to the guide rail. And what this does is that it gives us this radius out here being larger than this radius at the top to mimic the shape that pumpkins have. All right. One more thing before I get out of this. We do indeed want it to be a new body. And be careful with chain selection. What this will do is when you select one part of a spline, it will select everything in a line with that spline. In this operation, it will cause problems, so watch out for that. All right, I'm going to hit OK. We now have a new body here. I said new body here. There we go. So what we want to do with this body is we want to make it pumpkin-like. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pattern. Create pattern is here, and we want a circular pattern. We're going to select the body that we're working with. So object select, there it is. The axis, this is around the point at which you will be copying all of the pattern of the bodies that we've selected. And 3 isn't quite a pumpkin, but if we kick this up to 10, we now have something very pumpkin-y, you know, a little on the perfect side, but keep in mind that you could also make the number of lobes parametric, so instead of typing in 10 in the pattern menu, I could have typed in number of lobes, or, you know, NL as I had in my parameter stage. This is a little on the messy side, having all these different bodies. So what we can do is that we can select them all, and we can combine them. If this isn't up here, you can find that in the Modify menu. And what that will do is that it will take a moment. It'll ask you what you'd like to do. For any of the Boolean options, those are the ones where you're either adding, subtracting, or overlapping. It wants to know what the target body is and what the tool body is. It really doesn't matter for this particular one. And with subtract, it makes a big difference. And what you can just remember is that the tool body is what's being cut from the target body. So if you want to subtract, select what you want to subtract from the object second. But since we're joining, it doesn't matter. We're not making a new component. We're just combining these. I'm going to hit OK, and it will take all of these bodies and convert it into one. And it's a little easier to deal with. And you'll notice now that when I try to select over that, it's giving me faces rather than the whole body. Okay, pumpkins need a stem. So we are going to go to construct. This allows you to create construction planes, construction lines, reference points, things that you want to use as anchor points for your sketches and so forth. So we're going to make an offset plane here, and we want the plane to be parallel to the top plane. So we've selected the plane, but now we need the distance. And there's two ways we could do this. We could, well, there's three ways really. We could just drag it to what looks good. We could type in a distance, or we could actually say we want to go to an object. And what we have, if I turn off the bodies and turn back on the sketches, well, maybe we need to change our viewpoint here. So if we go back from the front, let's make this plane from the top here. And now we have a reference plane at that point here, and we can start to sketch to it. So I'm going to hit OK. And we're going to create a new sketch. All right. So of my options for planes, I'm going to pick this one that I just made up here. And now I can draw on that. I'm going to go from the top, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to show you a new tool. We are going to create a polygon, and we're going to do a circumscribed polygon. This is a polygon that fits on the outside of the radius of a circle. Inscribed would be within that, and then edge is the length of the edges. But we want it to be from the middle out, and I'm going to say that we want 3 inches And I'm also going to say that we want 5 lobes. If you count, if you look at a pumpkin stem, the one I have anyway is a pentagon. All right, but those corners are a bit sharp. So what I'm going to do is, this is another thing that I have not taught you yet, is fillets. We can change these from being sharp corners to rounded corners. So if I want to fillet, I can go from one to the next, and we can type in a radius so that you can define how soft you want it to be. I think 1 is just fine here. And so I'm going to do that for all of these. So fillet, this one and this one, enter, this one and this one. I guess it wants me to select fillet for each one. First line, second line, enter. All right, so now we have a rounded pentagon. We're going to finish sketch, and we are going to take a look at that. That is a rather large stem at the moment, but it won't be quite that large as we continue. So I'm going to make yet a new sketch. We could have rotated and worked from the same one, but it can be kind of tricky to keep track of what face you're on, so I'm going to click this face here. And I'm going to be making splines from this center point here. So fit point spline, and I'm going to just freehand an approximation of the curve of a pumpkin stem. You have a lot of freedom here, and anything works is fine. But then I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to do my best to be from, if we go straight from the top, we want to make sure we're still on this axis here. So, yeah, there we go. See how this line pops up right here? That's what we're looking for. And I want to be out to the edge of the pentagon here. And I'm going to come up. I'm going to come over. And then I'm going to roughly follow this curve here. All right. And then we'll hit OK. The exactness is not necessary, but you can kind of get the idea that this comes through the center of the pentagon, and this comes from the edge of the pentagon, and then we'll finish that. So now we have our stem form, and we can create another sweep from that, and we're also going to use path and guide rail. So our profile is the pentagon, the path is this one here, and the guide rail is this one here. And so now we have, oh, this is also important, new body. It might default to a cut or an intersect or a join. Join would work too, but let's just go with new body. We can join them later. And now we turn it all back on, we have ourselves a pumpkin. If you're not happy with the scale of that, which this one's looking kind of dopey, I'm going to go back to the sketch that defined that. Maybe turn everything else off. We'll edit that. And we'll bring this in just a little bit. Maybe something like that. Keep in mind that when it does this, it's making one on the opposite side, and so that will swing out from the wide end. So when I hit Finish Sketch, it should automatically make an adjustment to this operation as well. So if you look down here, we have our sweeps, we have our sketches. When I made my adjustments here, it backed up and then reapplied the sweep with the new settings. Now, if the new spline that you created isn't compatible with the sweep function, you will get an error message, and then you'll need to make some corrections. And the normal failure modes for a sweep are usually that your splines are not connected to your profile in a way that allows it to interpret it correctly. Okay, so there you go. That is the pumpkin assignment. You can change the parameters if you want to make it a taller or wider pumpkin. You can make more or fewer lobes, and you can even change the size of the lobes depending on where you put your guide numbers. Thank you very much.